Web development requires more than just state management, it requires effect management. In the previous video, we created a service from the Omnibus RxJS library to ring a bell outside of XState. We added a visual indicator driven by whether the bell effect was running. We drove the indicator from the effect management layer, and this kept XState focused on what it was managing, the count. Now, we'll see two more benefits of using an Omnibus service as an effect manager: concurrency control and cancelability. We'll also show a bit where observables can do more than promises. Let's take a look. So, a bell is played on every click of the increment button. What happens if we click while a bell is playing? The bell sounds overlap. But their combined volume doesn't sound good, and we want to be able to hear the sounds individually. How about we cue the bells? Does this sound like a scary change to make? With Omnibus as your effect manager, it doesn't have to be. Let's change our service to a queuing service instead. And how did we do? Click our button twice, and boom, bell 1 followed by bell 2. And of course, our indicator is still in sync, with net 0 lines of code added. Omnibus, being a dedicated effect manager, lets you do anything you want to handle async overlap. Any of these concurrency strategies can be applied to your service just as easily as queuing. Some of them, like switching, involve cancellation. Also, cancellation of effects is a generally useful feature to be applied on route changes, state exits, or just when the user wants to silence the bell. Our Ring It service supports cancellation. Let's hook up a button to the bell indicator and call the cancel current property of the service. Now, we start the bell and click the indicator, and we see the indicator no longer thinks it's active. But why did our bell still ring? People make fun of me for preferring observables over promises. But dig this. Promises are not cancelable in general, yet every observable of the last 10 years is. We are currently returning an uncancelable promise from our listener. All we have to do to cancel the sound is convert our promise returning function into an observable returning one. Thankfully, it's just a bit of code. We start by calling the observable constructor with the same code as before, but from it we return a cancellation function. This is like React useEffect, which borrowed this pattern from RxJS. Also, let's redo our completion while we're in here. The observable constructor receives an argument, let's call it notify, which lets us announce when we are done. Let's just call notify.complete from our source onEnded property. Now, we click our indicator and we hear our bell is canceled, now that we're not using leaky by default promises. See, observables aren't so scary for the power they deliver. While we're in here, let's listen to the other concurrency strategies. There's switching, which is like a debounce. There's blocking, which is like a throttle. And all of them are just one-line changes. Your team will wonder how you got so much control over async in so little code. What we've seen here is that the Omnibus service is a full-featured effect manager. It supports cancellation and all major concurrency strategies with 0 additional code. Some of its features, like cancellation, you can do inside of XState, but if the separation of effects from your state model makes sense, then Omnibus is here for your use case. Thanks for listening.